She writes the most extraordinary plots. I mean, she's a brilliant plotter, and coupled with that, her stories are driven by very, very particular observations on the frailties of human nature and on personalities of the people who drive her stories and at the centre of her tales. I think that combination has made her an enduring voice in literature for many, many years.
And she's also got a sense of humour. Yeah.
And she never disappoints. It's always a brilliant plot, it's always the perfect murder, and she always delivers. I remember the first time as a child watching Murder on the Orient Express, and it completely blew my mind because I had no idea where the story was heading, and it was so clever. Well, I thought it was one of Agatha Christie's lesser known works and the characters, and Poirot and Marple had been so successful, and I thought that Tommy and Tuppence had been a bit neglected, and I thought there was something just so brilliant about a married couple solving crimes together, because their relationship would come into that, and I thought there would be an opportunity for some humour. And also I liked that they were quite vulnerable characters, because they're amateur sleuths, they're not sort of they're not like Sherlock Holmes or Poirot sort of geniuses. So I thought the audience would really be able to relate to them. Fortunately, although there has been other adaptations of these stories, there's not like a sort of definitive one in the way that there might be with if you were playing Sherlock Holmes now or James Bond now. Unlikely I'm going to be asked, but I don't have to worry about it. No, you know, you're kind of very aware that you're following people who are very, very in the public's imagination, whereas I feel that really it was ours for the taking because the public didn't have huge awareness of the other adaptations.
I think the challenge in this adaptation was making sure that we held on to the spirit of Agatha Christie and her writing, but in a modern way, and that we embraced both the adventure in this story and the humour, so that we always thought of it as Indiana Jones meets Agatha Christie. And I'm delighted to say I think that's what we've captured.
We set it in the 50s, in the Cold War, and to me that was a very exciting moment in post-war Britain when Russia and Britain were just beginning to lock horns, and espionage was, as a profession, was growing in public consciousness. So I very much have made it with a sort of little bit of a noir feel sometimes. It's quite dark, but it then flips, as David says, when the tone changes and becomes more about character and comedy. It then becomes quite colourful and warm, sympathetic. And so what we've done really in the look and the cinematography is try and take the viewer to two very different places. So you go to quite a dark, dangerous place full of adventure where there's real jeopardy, and then you'll come back from that and you'll be in the kitchen with David and Jessica who's mixing cake, and there's Fanny Craddock playing on the radio, and you know, we're organising our wigs, and so it has very definite tonal shifts, which really excited me as a filmmaker.
Do you know who Fanny Craddock is? He said Fanny Craddock on the radio. Fanny Craddock is is a chef in Britain who died about 40 years ago. Yes. Just so you know who Fanny Craddock is. I think it's more about finding the truth in both that's important, and in this case we really didn't want to spoof Agatha Christie anyway. We wanted to keep the world really real and really threatening, but have humour come out of the characters and the fact that they are amateurs. So you know, I delight in humour. I mean, it's something that I really love doing, but so when there was opportunity for it, we explored it, but when there wasn't, it was never like, oh, well, let's get some humour in here. We're just thinking, well, this is a really serious scene and there's no opportunity for any humour, and there was no question that we would try and put it in. I think the worst thing would be to pastiche the world, because Agatha Christie, when she wrote these stories, they were contemporary to her, but it's become a little bit perceived as something a little bit sort of like chocolate boxy, a little bit old-fashioned, because, you know, she started writing like 1920s. But she actually wrote these characters from the 20s to the 1970s and kept them contemporary. So the past is actually quite a dark place in our version.
Yes.
Tuppence is very forthright and empowered, and really she drives things a lot of the time. And so I think audience will really like that, especially a female audience. They're going to really like to see a really strong woman at the centre of it. So there's kind of, I think, real pleasure in when she puts him down and takes charge. I really love those scenes. It might not have been a typical 50s marriage.
No, I don't think it is a typical 50s marriage, but I mean, yes, as David says, and I can say this, is he was so good at doing this. They're two very, very different characters. She likes to leap before she looks and sees an adventure with a capital A around every corner and is a glass half full girl, and he is a little more circumspect and careful and analytical, and the combination of those two qualities make for a super sleuth when you put them together. The only problem is they've never done it before, so they keep finding themselves in the eye of the storm, and that makes, which David and Jessica sort of put across on the screen so successfully, that makes gives it an everyman feel to it as a story, and you really can, when you watch it, put yourselves in their shoes, whether you're a wife or a husband or whoever you are.